doesn't matter, which business or which government you actually talk to, what they're unequivocally saying is that fundamental systems change is actually needed in order to try and find solutions for a world that 8, 9, 10 billion people can actually live in.
I think, connectivity absolutely can help us solve sustainability issues by letting the people who are closest to the issues actually have a voice. Rather than, people in leadership positions sitting there and saying, well, we know what's best. It's really about having the communities that are affected actually have a voice in these things and come up with solutions for themselves.
It's important across the world that people do have digital access.
Here and outside of this summit, people are meeting and gathering and saying we have to build alternatives. And there are real alternatives being built, whether it's community energy projects or food sovereignty campaigns or people taking on the power of corporations.
For us is taking the international community on a way where sustainability is part of your constitution.
Governments are going to have to be very careful they're not left behind civil society, communities, local government, regions, because there's a lot happening out there on sustainable development. We need more happening at the level of governments absolutely committed to developing the kind of triple win strategies which will see the pillars of sustainable development advance together.
We want the major groups, civil society, the trade unions, to be at the table because frankly the leaders didn't show the courage of even negotiating with each other. They accepted a low ambition text from the bureaucrats, from the diplomats, and they did nothing to lift the aspirations.
See, however weak the document that we got here in Rio this week, however weak it is, there are ways to interpret it and use it in order to advance environmental protection.
Signal to the Secretary General that civil society is willing to engage with the UN moving forward, but we have to have greater voice, greater participation and more co-determination.
The empowering of women is not only by women, but it also affects and has consequences for a democratic involvement of any country.
The text is weak and disappointing. It does set some processes in train, and I'll say a little about that. But on the other side of what's happened in Rio, I think there is a lot of vitality, and it's in the partnerships that we're going to look at in this particular forum. It's in more private sector partnerships. It's in the people power that we're seeing both here in Rio and those who are being contacted through social media, particularly young people. There are millions of people who know more about what's going on here because they're being connected. And that gives me some hope.
All governments should make it broadband free so that the young generation can build their own life. That's the most important thing to do.
We are paying attention, much more focus on youth in power. Often we've been saying that the young people are the leaders of tomorrow, but they have become leaders of today already. You have seen such strong voices and power, which we have seen in Arab Spring. They have become leaders of today already.
It's not a failure of people to say what they want. It's not a failure of our movement or of our world. It's simply a failure of governments to do what the people have asked them to do.